The trial of former Virginia Governor Bob Mcdonnell and his wife began today with jury selection. Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Jeff Goldberg spoke to Mcdonnell as he entered the court today, and Jeff is live in Richmond with what the former governor had to say. Jeff?
Well, Maureen, the former governor sounding very upbeat this morning, but today's activity in court giving some indication of just how slow and deliberate this trial could be. Jury selection accounting for all the time here on day one, still going at this moment. The former governor has been very quiet in his previous court appearances, but today he was talking. Anything to say going into court, Governor?
Good morning.
Looking relaxed and with a confident smile, former Governor Bob Mcdonnell makes his way into federal court without his wife Maureen by his side.
I feel good. Well, I'm glad we're finally going to get a chance to present our defense in court.
10 minutes before the governor's arrival, the former First Lady, surrounded by family and security detail, saying nothing. The McDonnells are facing 14 federal charges alleging they accepted $165,000 in loans and gifts, including private plane rides, expensive clothing, and a Rolex from former Star Scientific CEO Johnny Williams in exchange for helping promote his company in Virginia. The governor and his lawyers maintain he never promised Williams anything and took no official state action on his behalf. Feeling optimistic about things, sir?
I've got tremendous lawyers, and I've got faith in God and the justice system, and that's comforting.
Governor Mcdonnell is set to take the stand in his own defense. Maureen Mcdonnell is not, although she will be called as a witness for the prosecution. Johnny Williams also set to testify. Well, Gordon, Johnny Williams taking the stand late today. We really didn't expect to see him taking the stand, but when he did, he had a whole lot to say. In addition to talking about that shopping spree in New York City in which he spent $20,000, he says, on the former First Lady Maureen Mcdonnell, he also talked about how it was very clear to him he was entering into a business relationship with Bob and Maureen Mcdonnell when the former governor was in office here in Richmond. Here now, Johnny Williams getting out of court just moments ago. You said this was just a business relationship, Johnny, not a personal relationship. Can you comment on that? What was it like to...
Mr. Williams is not going to comment on anything. No comment from Mr. Williams. Please, back off. Y'all are being a bit ridiculous. Please.
What will you comment?
Certainly a chaotic scene outside the courtroom just 10 minutes ago. Williams on the stand today talked in detail about a meeting he had on May 2nd in 2011 at the governor's mansion here in Richmond. What Maureen Mcdonnell said to Johnny Williams, what he said on the stand today was that she said to him, I have a background in nutritional supplements. I can be helpful to you. The governor says, I can help you with this project, but I need you to help me with this financial situation. At that point, Johnny Williams said, I said, okay, I'll do it. He then said he wanted to speak with the governor because he said if he was going to be writing checks to the McDonnells, $50,000 for a loan, $15,000 to pay for the bill for their daughter's wedding, he said he wanted to speak with the governor about it first, saying the governor's the breadwinner. He needs to hear about this. Williams then said to the governor, I'm willing to help. I just want to make sure you know about it. He says Bob Mcdonnell then said to him, thank you. This was a busy day in court. The morning was chock full of information as well. Here's what happened earlier. Walking into court this morning, again, without his wife by his side.
Just expecting another good day.
How do you...
The former governor talked about how he's preparing for the long road ahead.
Well, as I mentioned, I have great faith in God and in the justice system, and that sustains me every day.
No question about it, Autry. This afternoon we heard from Governor Mcdonnell's sister's ex-husband, who testified to the deep financial problems of the family's real estate company dating back to 2009. This witness for the prosecution, Michael Unkefor, testifies that he spoke with Johnny Williams at the direction of Maureen Mcdonnell, and in an email chain with then Governor Mcdonnell referred to Williams as the guy who is helping us. The start of the week brought with it an eagerness from the former governor for the defense to have its say in court.
I think we're about halfway done, and I'm ready to begin to present our case soon.
Are you ready to take the stand? Are you looking forward to that this week?
Doubt it'll be this week.
Taking the stand this morning, Martin Kent, the former governor's chief of staff. Kent was asked about the now infamous Ferrari road trip in July 2011, when Governor Mcdonnell drove Johnny Williams' Ferrari from the former CEO's vacation home in Smith Mountain Lake back to Richmond.
Jeff Goldberg is live from Richmond with what happened in court today.
The United States rests. Those were the words of lead prosecutor Michael Dry about an hour ago as the prosecution rested its case. Following that moment, the man at the center of this trial walked outside the courthouse.
I'm glad we finally get to start our case.
With the prosecution's case done, Governor Bob McDonnell is eager to now have his say.
There's two sides to the story, and we'll get our chance here on Monday.
Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Jeff Goldberg is live from the courthouse now with today's developments. Jeff?
Well, Allison, court wrapping up just a few minutes ago. I'm going to look over my shoulder here. I do expect that Governor McDonnell will be walking out of court momentarily. No testimony from him yet. We do not know when that's going to happen. The defense's key witness today saying that Governor McDonnell was a cheerleader for all Virginia businesses and gave no special treatment to Johnny Williams or to Star Scientific. And that witness, Janet Kelly is her name, said that she did not want to pile on Maureen McDonnell and almost teared up there on the stand for a moment. But after that, one more check to see if the governor is out. He is not out yet, but he is looking like he's coming in this direction. Janet Kelly again saying that she did not want to pile on Maureen McDonnell, but shortly after that, many harsh words began to flow.
I'm really not going to answer any questions.
Walking into court this morning, Janet Kelly did not say much. Is this hard to be a part of this?
Maybe we can talk afterwards. I'm not going to answer any questions.
But once inside, she offered a blistering critique of former First Lady Maureen McDonnell. Kelly, a longtime political loyalist to Governor McDonnell, who was appointed as Secretary of the Commonwealth in 2010, calls Maureen McDonnell very difficult, very demanding, very diva-ish, saying there were concerns she was suffering from mental illness. And there you see him on the corner of North 7th Street and East Broad speaking with a supporter there. Governor McDonnell did walk out of the courtroom just moments ago. He has been very cheerful, very upbeat, walking in and out of the courtroom, talking about how he is ready to take the stand. We heard this afternoon from the Secretaries of Commerce and Finance, who both corroborated what the former Secretary of the Commonwealth said, that Governor McDonnell made no financial requests on behalf of Star Scientific. Now, Janet Kelly, that key witness for today, had a lot to say about Maureen McDonnell, calling her relationship with Johnny Williams flirty and saying that she would often take her anger out on the former governor. Much more on that coming up tonight at 6 o'clock.
3 days after the defense began its case, Bob McDonnell is now on the stand.
Our Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Jeff Goldberg has been covering this case from the very beginning. He just stepped out of that courtroom. So, Jeff, what's going on right now?
Well, right now, Allison, Governor McDonnell currently on the stand talking about his time in office, the beginning of his time in governor here in Virginia. This was somewhat of an unexpected development. The day was somewhat slow compared to other days. Then at about 3:20 this afternoon, all of a sudden, Governor McDonnell takes the stand. He started out, his attorney asking him about what his emotions were like after he won the race for governor in 2009. We went back to the morning of November 4th, 2009, and the governor started talking about his wife, Maureen McDonnell, saying, quote, "I could tell she was not as happy as I was. I could sense some tension about the upcoming role as First Lady. She was yelling at me about something. There was a lot of stress about what lay ahead." He then turned to a conversation he received from President Obama that same morning. It was a 7-minute phone call that began with the president saying, "Hello, Bob, this is Barack." Governor McDonnell describing this as a nice, generous, friendly conversation. The president saying, "We've got to work together." And during that conversation and after that conversation, Governor McDonnell saying, quote, "It was now dawning on me I was entering into a new phase of my life." The governor then going on to talk about his upbringing, one of 5 children growing up in the Mount Vernon section of Fairfax County, his time at Notre Dame, his time in the private practice, and of course at the House of Delegates, then his run for Attorney General and governor. He said that in that run for Attorney General, it was a real eye-opener, realizing that a statewide race was incredibly taxing on families, an immense sacrifice, putting a tremendous strain on the marriage. The governor saying just a few minutes ago, really releasing an astonishing figure when he started being asked about raising money, what that was like. He said that in the past 8 years, he has estimated he has raised $58 million between his races for Attorney General, governor, raising money for a PAC, and for the Republican Governors Association. But he was asked about his philosophy when talking about donors. Of course, Johnny Williams, the unspoken name in the courtroom at this moment. The governor saying, if you can't take somebody's money and not vote against their interest the next day. You don't belong in the business. And of course, Governor McDonnell will go on during this testimony to argue that yes, he did take money from Johnny Williams, but he never gave Johnny Williams any special favors. That's what we can expect to hear from the testimony going into tomorrow. We expect the court probably will wrap up at 5:30 or so. We expect the governor will leave court as he has every day and speak with members of the media. We hope to get that information, hear what it was like to be on the stand for the first day, and then bring that to you coming up at 6 o'clock. Allison, certainly an amazing scene in the courtroom. Not many people expected the governor to take the stand today, but he did at about 3:20 this afternoon, going till 5:30 when court wrapped up for the evening. Towards the end of his testimony, Governor McDonnell was addressed somewhat in questioning about Star Scientific, saying his administration did very little to help the company. Here's what the scene was like about 20 minutes ago. Governor McDonnell leaving the courthouse met with an absolute crush of cameras. A lot of the testimony today focusing on the governor's biography, talking about his upbringing in the Mount Vernon section of Fairfax County, his siblings, his time at Notre Dame, University of Notre Dame, and also his time in the public sector, the House of Delegates, his run for Attorney General, and his run for governor. He talked about that run for governor and what it was like the morning after he won, November 4th, 2009, and he could already sense trouble with his wife Maureen after that victory, saying, "I could tell she was not as happy as I was. I could sense tension about the upcoming role as First Lady. She was yelling about me at something, There was a lot of stress," he says, about what lay ahead for his wife. A few minutes ago, we asked the governor about that testimony. Governor, was this difficult? We've heard a lot of things said about your wife, and we heard some of them from you today. Was this hard for you today?
Of course, talking about marriage and finances are hard for anybody.
What do you expect for tomorrow, sir?
Expect another day on the stand.
You ready?
Yes.
Well, folks, again, we interrupt our regular programming to give you the latest word we're getting from Richmond, Virginia about the verdict being reached in the Mcdonnell trial. And we have just learned, according to the Associated Press, that the jury has found Bob McDonnell and his wife Maureen guilty of one count of public corruption.
That is the first count of 14.
Counts 1 through 11, Bob McDonnell guilty of that, and Maureen guilty of 9 others. I'm joined by my colleague, Jeff Goldberg, who has been here since the trial started on July 28th. Jeff, just give us a sense of what it was like in there.
Suzanne, this was an absolutely dramatic moment. The McDonnell family, their children in the first 2 rows of the courthouse, just stunned, absolutely in tears as the verdict was being read. And as each time that the word guilty was read by the person in the courtroom, you could hear sort of an audible gasp. And it started with the first count that was read guilty. You heard some of the children crying, and then as each charge went forward and we heard guilty over and over again, the crying was just somewhat uncontrollable, sobbing. We could not see what was on Maureen McDonnell's face, but Bob McDonnell was sobbing. He was, as the verdict was being read, his hands covering his face, leaning back in his chair, absolutely crushed by what he was hearing. It almost seemed like the family, Bob McDonnell, was in disbelief as to what was happening, and really a stunning moment, of course, throughout this entire trial and the lead up to it. The governor has adamantly professed his innocence. That's why he wanted to take this situation to trial, because he felt so strongly about being innocent. And you could really feel just this dramatic moment of disbelief and just absolutely crushed feeling from the governor and his family, and presumably from Maureen McDonnell. And I think a big thing, and we've talked about this, everybody has the past couple of days, during those jury instructions 2 days ago, the prosecution seemingly got a big win in that, because the judge defined official acts of what the sort of trading of the governor's office would be, gave it a lot of leeway, and essentially said that it could be an agreement by which the governor and his wife, to this extent, could be doing something that they would be doing for any other company, business as usual, as long as the person who was paying that bribe believed that he was getting something in return. As far as a wink and a nod is what Judge Spencer had mentioned. So that gave a lot of leeway to these charges. Maybe we will hear from jurors, we don't know, but in terms of whether or not the government met that burden to reach that sort of level, clearly jurors felt that that was the case. One of the things that I think a lot of us found really interesting and really really powerful was the closing argument by David Harbach, who was the part of the prosecution. And he essentially said to the jurors, if this doesn't feel right to you, if there's that sort of feeling inside your stomach that doesn't feel right, that's corruption. And if something feels off to you, that's why it feels off, is because this isn't right. And he said, it pointed to them very adamantly and said, this is corruption, the real thing, don't let this stand. They clearly found that Johnny Williams' testimony was believable. I mean, this was a guy who was under investigation for stock fraud charges. The judge told jurors as they went into instructions, weigh his testimony with great care, because he got immunity. But clearly they felt that his testimony was legitimate, was believable, and it probably had a lot to do with their verdict. Right now, I think we see that Maureen Mcdonnell, I believe, leaving the courthouse there in that crush of cameras. We see some vehicles there to the left waiting for Maureen Mcdonnell to leave court. She has not said anything throughout this entire trial, walking in or out of court. It looks like you see that absolute crush of cameras over there. Presumably she's not saying a word, getting into a vehicle, waiting for her there. Not surprisingly, again, I can't see what's in the middle of that scrum, but expectations are that is Maureen Mcdonnell, and if that is the case, she hasn't been speaking with the media, and I see her attorney there, Bill Burke, so presumably that could be Maureen Mcdonnell leaving. We're going to have to wait and see, and again, no sign yet of Governor Bob McDonnell. I'm going to see if Maureen Mcdonnell's attorneys will come to the microphone here. If you can hold on one second. Actually, these are the attorneys for both. John, Bill, excuse me. Can you please make a comment? Mr. Brownlee, Mr. Burke, Mr. Aspel, anything to say, sir? Mr. Aspel, can you please come make it? Mr. Aspel, please. Mr. Aspel. Please, sir. Come this way, sir. Tell me, what was your, can you go to the podium here, please, sir? Please. Switch it.
Can you tell us about what you think about the results?
We're very disappointed, but we're not deterred. This fight is a long way from over.
Explain what you mean.
What do you mean by that, sir? What do you mean by that?
Thank you very much.
Suzanne Kennedy joins us. Suzanne, anything to add to this?
Well, the governor just came out about 2 or 3 minutes ago. He walked right into a car, very unlike what he has done throughout this entire trial. His face looked drawn. He looked like an aged man. And he didn't say much. All he would say is, I thank you for the way you have handled yourselves. That's it.
What did you see on his face? You know, what I've described what I saw in the courtroom. What's your sense of what you saw of him walking out of the court?
A tremendous amount of shock and sadness.
Suzanne, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And of course, just this historical, momentous day in downtown Richmond, as we have seen Governor Bob McDonnell and Maureen Mcdonnell convicted, found guilty of corruption in the scheme involving Star Scientific CEO Johnny Williams. Prison time could be in their future. This is just an absolutely stunning event to witness. The McDonnells in complete shock, in tears after what they had seen today, and the first governor in Virginia history to be found guilty of corruption. And now the penalty phase awaits. Leon and Allison?
Okay, Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Nice work down there.
Yeah, thank you the entire time. 5 weeks all wrapped up in this momentous day.
Well, Leon, an absolutely amazing moment to witness in that courtroom. As the verdict was being read, Governor Bob McDonnell sobbing, his head in his hands, leaning back in his chair. The McDonnell family taking up the first 2 rows of that courthouse, crying almost uncontrollably, you could say, and each time the word guilty was read, you could hear an audible gasp from family members in the first 2 rows. It was just stunning to watch the weight of the reality hitting everybody in the McDonnell family, particularly Bob McDonnell. It took 7 men and 5 women 3 days to deliberate this case, and now Governor Bob McDonnell becomes the first governor in the history of Virginia to not only be charged, but convicted of a crime.
Anything to say to the people of Virginia?
Leaving court with his son Bobby by his side, a stunned Governor Bob McDonnell says only this after being found guilty of corruption.
My trust remains in the Lord.
After speaking with reporters extensively before and after each day of the trial, at this moment, the governor's final words for the day are for the reporters themselves.
It's okay. Thank you all for the way you've handled this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
The former governor was found guilty of all 11 corruption charges, including conspiring to defraud voters and fraud charges. Maureen Mcdonnell was found guilty on 9 counts, 8 corruption charges, and a charge of obstructing a grand jury in relation to returning clothes Johnny Williams bought during their New York City shopping spree. Both McDonnells were found not guilty of falsifying loan applications. They were accused of using the governor's office to promote Johnny Williams' product, Anatoblock, in exchange for nearly $180,000 in gifts and loans.
I think this case sends an important message. The FBI will engage and engage vigorously to any credible allegation of corruption.
In a trial that lasted 5 weeks, the personal and at times embarrassing details of the McDonnells' marriage were laid bare for all to see. Defense attorneys arguing the workaholic absent governor could not possibly have conspired with his erratic, difficult wife, who they say had a crush on the charming and slick vitamin salesman. But piece by piece, prosecutors methodically presenting a case of corruption and bribery, that the husband and wife were working hand in hand to sell the prestige and power of the governor's office, to climb out of an enormous hole of debt, and to get a taste of the good life.
I'm obviously very disappointed that we couldn't bring this home for our client today, and we will appeal.
Is there anything you would have sent different?
I can't think of it right now.
We have not heard from Maureen Mcdonnell throughout this trial. Today was no different. Also, no comment from jurors who were let out of a back door here at the courthouse. The McDonnells could be facing decades in federal prison. A sentencing hearing is set for January 6th. Live in Richmond, Jeff Goldberg, ABC 7 News.